this show is entirely listener supported. That's you. You're a listener. If you want to support the show and find out how to get bonus content and early episodes and monthly video hangouts with me and Jeff, you can head to patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. Infinity War 2, Electric fucking Boogaloo.
Yeah.
This Christmas.
Because they'll still be making money this Christmas.
That's true. Anyway, this is We Have Concerns. Hi, Jeff Canada.
Hi, Anthony Carboni.
Hello, concerned citizens.
Hey, Anthony, I want to tell you something. I don't know if you know about me, but...
I try not to.
Yeah. Well, even if you knew, you probably forgot at this point because you don't pay attention. My first job, my very first job... And again, this is going to step right into you with a joke about my age. But my first job ever at 14 was writing for a newspaper. Mm-hmm. Newspapers were these things that used to exist that delivered to people's houses that were on paper.
Great.
That was my very first job. I was a writer, a professional writer for the newspaper. I had a weekly column. I reviewed video games at 14 years old. And in the process of doing that job, I basically learned how to write. I learned how to structure things. I remember
Can you imagine waiting for a weekly column in a newspaper to come out to find out what's happening in video games?
Right.
Can you fucking imagine that?
No one knew. For 6 days, it was a big mystery.
Somebody is just waiting, counting down for 6 days, just like, oh boy, I can't wait to find out the latest about video games next Thursday.
Yeah.
I hope there's a video game.
When Electronic Gaming Monthly, I got a subscription to that, and it was just like, oh wow, look at that. Something's
video games
out
every month.
Yeah, look at that.
What a novel idea.
I know, crazy, right? But I learned how to write professionally. I learned what the rules of grammar were, of how to structure things.
Sure.
Things that
I was on my school paper. I was always on my school paper. So.
I remember one of the I'll never forget this bit of advice. The first time I sat down with an editor at the newspaper and I submitted one of my very first columns, it had a lot of exclamation points in it. And he said, yeah, because I was excited.
Because, dude, this shit is exciting.
I'm fucking 14 and I was writing about video games. You kidding me?
Do you know how exciting it is? It's so exciting that you scream the whole time.
That's right.
Thereby making nothing exciting.
He straight up told me, he said, you have a finite number of exclamation points to use in your life. Mm-hmm. When you've used the last one, you die.
I had an editor tell me the same thing.
Really? Oh, I thought that was something he made up.
I said it was like exclamation points are like heartbeats.
Yeah.
It's like heartbeats.
Maybe that's a thing. Is that a thing?
I think it's probably like a classic newspaper man thing. But I really thought
it was my guy coming up with this really cool gem of that's really burst my bubble.
Yeah, my editor told me this thing that he came up with. He said a stitch in time saves 9.
Yeah.
You know?
One in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, he said.
And that was my editor and only my editor who said that. A wise man, my editor.
Anyway, another thing, because that was the time period at which I learned how to write, another thing that has ingrained in me and I have not been able to shake is 2 spaces after a period.
Ooh, Jeff Canada. Are you still doing that?
Still doing that.
Okay.
Still doing that.
Okay.
It's instinctive. It happens automatically. I get to an end of a sentence. I hit those 2 spaces on the space bar. And I like it because on iOS type screens, it gives you an automatic period if you do that.
Gives you an automatic period, but only gives you a single space.
It deletes one of those spaces.
Yeah. I was a very long holdout of that as well. I can't remember when I stopped doing it, but it was a few years ago. Because I also after years of being on school papers and writing and things like that, I was also an art and design student. So I wound up going into graphic design and learning a lot about typography and things like that. And so on a typographical level, it was, when somebody explains to me, no, the way fonts are built now, the way readability works now, aesthetically, you don't need those 2 spaces. That to me was like, oh, on a design level, it makes sense. On a editors beating this into my head for years sense, it doesn't, but I'm going to let it go.
So have you completely converted back to single spaces?
Completely converted. I don't use the double space.
I'm still clinging to it. I bring all of this up because we got an interesting article sent to us by Tafofum, our friend on the Reddit, on the old subreddit, which is wehaveconcerns.reddit.com. And this is an article in Washington Post about this very thing, 2 spaces and single spaces. And there is still a big debate among let's be honest, pedants, people like me who get really
olds.
Yeah. About whether this is good or bad. And so some scientists got involved and decided to do an experiment to find out scientifically, objectively, what's better? What makes it clearer and easier to read?
Okay.
Having a single space or a double space after periods.
Well, I would imagine no matter, here's what I'm going to think happens. No matter what, even if a font and a design and a document is set up perfectly for single space, two spaces is always going to add more clarity.
Yeah. Well, then why not do it?
Because it's a question of whether you need that extra clarity, I suppose.
Well, you bring up, I think, the biggest salient point.
How clear is clear enough?
Right. Well, you bring up what I think is the biggest salient point, which is fonts, right? Because this came from an era where we didn't have a bunch of different typefaces, and the fact that you added two spaces really made a big impact because every character was the same width.
Monospaced fonts.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that
this comes from like printing plates.
Correct.
And like the old school Gutenberg printing press where you like put type down in little metal blocks.
Right.
Onto lines.
Which, by the way, whose job was that?
Gutenberg.
That sounds like
it was fucking Gutenberg's job.
He just did all of them forever?
Yeah, until the day he died. And then it was son of Gutenberg. And then eventually the first Gutenberg to stop was Steve Gutenberg.
Really?
Who
He just got into acting.
He said, I'm leaving and I'm going to Hollywood to find my fortune.
Black
and
sheep
his
of the
father
family.
said, no, you're gonna.
He had a dream of becoming a police officer.
You're leaving the family business behind. I'm telling you, the future is putting these little letters into type. Movies are not going to catch on, Steve Gutenberg.
But I dream
especially movies where you find robots in love, or where you find babies in love, where you find a police badge in love. None of these things are going to work.
But he had the last laugh, that Steve Gutenberg.
He did. And you know what's sad is he died having never reconciled with his father.
And there was no obituary because nobody.
No, because there was nobody to set the type.
Yeah. Sad. It's the sad Gutenberg tale.
But no, and then eventually it turned into plates.
Right.
And then it was like typewriters were monospaced.
Yeah,
and like all this stuff.
I don't want to go too far on a tangent here, but it boggles my mind that there could even be a thing such as a daily newspaper all around the world when literally every word and every letter had to be physically placed with metal in a machine. Like that to me boggles my mind, the amount of work every fucking day.
Yeah. You think along the way somebody would just go, not worth it.
Yeah.
You think along the way, like somebody would be setting it all up and the editor would be like, how's it coming, Stevie? And Stevie would be like, well, I mean, I'm doing it as fast as I can. The editor's like, well, how far along are you? He's like, like a quarter of the way. He's like, editor's just like, man, fuck this.
Fuck this. Let's all do something else.
Fuck this, because I just got to turn around and come back tomorrow morning.
Let's make movies.
Yeah.
What do you want to do, Stevie?
The future is moving pictures. I don't know how we ever got to the future is just lying about the news on television.
Yeah.
Let's just hang out until somebody invents radio or television.
That editor was a real visionary about lying.
About lying. So it is crazy to me that anything ever got done or made.
So anyway, back to our experiment. So these scientists got together. It's a very small scale experiment, but they got together 60 students. And the first thing they did was they asked the 60 students, how many of you use double spaces and how many of you use single spaces after the period in a sentence?
Oh, can I guess? Like 15% maybe at most used double spaces.
Actually, a third of them were double spacers.
Wow.
Over a third. 21 of 60 were two spacers.
That's way more than I would have thought.
And the way they didn't just ask them, they actually put them in front of computers and dictated a thing and had them type it. And they noticed that 21 of the 60 use double spacing.
Huh.
So I'm very surprised. I would think young people these days just abandoned it.
I would have thought like 10, 15% at most.
Yeah. So then what they did is they clamped these students' head in a harness so they couldn't move their head. And they used something
that was not part of the experiment because it's just a typing and reading experiment. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You don't need to treat them like veal to do that, but they did.
They attached electrodes to their nuts.
Yeah. Scientists hate children. And that's something we know.
We know. They hate children almost as much as they hate mice.
Yeah.
Then they used a machine called an iLink 1000. Got to get that iLink 1000.
Yeah, the iLink 900 was good.
Yeah.
It was good, but I'm telling you,
it's worth the upgrade.
1000 is going to change your life.
Oh, it's worth it. I mean,
people think it's an incremental upgrade.
No. It has no bezel now.
Mm-hmm.
So nice. and it links more to your eye.
Yep, that's at least 100 more. So the iLink 1000 does what? Eye tracking?
Eye tracking, right? It can do a very, very high fidelity eye tracking. And they read 20 paragraphs. These students read 20 paragraphs silently, but were tracking where their eyes were going. And the paragraphs were written in various styles, one spaced, two spaced, and then strange combinations like two spaces after commas, but only one after periods. So all kinds of weird typographical anomalies. And what they found was two spaces actually allowed for a smoother reading experience.
Okay.
So interestingly, if you're looking for speed for reading, there was only a difference in the 21 people that already used double spaces. They actually read faster using double spaces. Everybody else read about the same with double spaces and without double spaces.
Okay.
So if you're already into double spaces, I guess you get a benefit from the double spaces, which is kind of cool.
Because it's just the way your brain is used to seeing things.
Yeah.
Because that's how you write.
There's no slowdown. They were able to.
I mean, what is the benefit then? Any?
Well, the benefit isn't speed, it's smoothness. So there were fewer milliseconds of the eye on the period, on the end of the sentence.
Okay.
So the actual speed of reading the entire paragraph didn't increase, but the delay of acknowledging that a new sentence is starting was reduced.
Okay. I mean, that seems super negligible. I mean, also, like, the other thing I want to say is you've got 20 paragraphs. Each paragraph is written in a bunch of different styles. I got questions about the interestingness of each paragraph.
Sure.
People's attention spans over 20 paragraphs.
Well, you would hope that because it's 20 paragraphs, it is enough variation there that it sort of equals out over time.
Sure. But then you've also got like sort of, does your brain get kind of like tired out or more confused as these things are randomly changing over paragraphs?
Right.
So what happens when you get to the last few? I don't know. If we're like splitting hairs down to the fact that it's not speed or comprehension, but smoothness, then I think we should also split hairs over like what are the tiniest variations within this tiniest variation.
You're not wrong. And in fact, some of the people that defend single space pounced on this and were saying that A, the benefits are very minor, and B,
if any, I would say, because what does smoothness do?
Right. You're right. It did not result in any more comprehension of the text.
Comprehension and speed are really like the only two things that we think would matter, right?
Eye fatigue?
I guess eye fatigue. Sure. You don't want eye fatigue.
No.
God, no.
No. Especially when you're using the iLink 1000.
Ugh. Because, yeah, I mean, just the added pressure of knowing the iLink 1000 is tracking you leads you to want to be more controlled in your eye motions anyway.
So this guy who was very much defending the single spacing, moving to single spacing, very militant about single spacing.
This is just pedantry all the way down.
It really is pedantry.
God.
But I find it fascinating. And the entire reason I wanted to bring this up, I'm a pedant, right? I am a guy who sticks to meanings of things that have traditional meaning. You know, if celibacy means not married, it doesn't mean not having sex, right? Chaste means that. I pronunciations of things that are traditional.
Sure.
And I understand that we're in a living language that evolves, and that's the beauty of English. But like, I get into these arguments all the time with people.
I mean, are you like, you would have to be some sort of a Das Vampire or Highlander or something to like not understand that celibacy means what it means now? Because that's like literally more than your lifetime that celibacy has meant what it means.
Sure, but I think there's...
Where did you even pick up the original meaning to be so like...
I studied Shakespeare.
I know, but like to be so precious about it when your entire life... I would honestly think that because you were literally born in the time when celibacy has meant no sex...
Right.
That when you started studying Shakespeare, you would have been like, oh, interesting. It used to mean this. But no, you latched on to the original one. Well, because that's a weird fucking thing, Jeff.
Because I value precision, right? I'm not always precise. I'm not perfect, but I intend to be as often as I possibly can. I value it. Right. And I recognize it in other people when someone uses the word they intend to use and they understand the meaning that it has. Yeah. Like, oh man, there's like a million examples. Why am I not thinking of any right now? Oh God. one, I just got into a huge argument about, I probably shouldn't even bring this up, but I got into this big argument recently about, I learned, because I've been saying game mechanics when talking about video games.
Yeah.
My whole life. And I learned that it's more precise to say game mechanisms. Mechanism is really what you're intending to say. Now, everybody uses mechanic, and everybody understands what you mean when you say mechanic. They don't think you're talking about a guy with a wrench, right? But the more precise word to use is mechanism.
Sure. Okay. Because a mechanic builds a mechanism.
Exactly.
That's less about a video game thing and more about the actual meaning of mechanics versus mechanism.
Exactly.
Sure.
But the counter argument that I always get is, if I'm communicating with you, the goal is to be understood.
Yeah.
And if we've succeeded at that goal, if there's no doubt as to what I intended to mean, then it doesn't matter. And I say, well, you are not only communicating with me the meaning of your sentence, you're communicating to me subtext of your level of precision and understanding.
Sure. But also, if the term that was created is game mechanics, if that was the term that was created to be used as like this specific technical term within the discussion of video games, then it's not incorrect. It's just become a technical term.
Agreed.
That was created for video games.
My argument isn't that it is incorrect. Mm-hmm. It is that it is more precise. You know what I'm saying?
It's more precise. It's more precise. And here's where we can go back and forth again. It's more precise in terms of being proper usage of the base English language and what those words mean in base English. But if the term was actually created for video games in the game industry in a specific way,
right, then
actually it's not more correct in that context. Now, if you were to say, I'm looking at what's going on in these, in the mechanics of this cotton gin.
Right. Right.
No, it's mechanisms, because we're talking about a physical machine and the mechanisms of that physical machine. When you're talking about the philosophical video game design mechanics,
right,
well, game mechanics is the term that was created to use that throughout the industry. So that's actually the correct term.
Right. But I'm saying that I
understand what you're saying.
I appreciate when someone communicates to me that they take the care to pay attention to those things.
They take the care to say it in a way that is mostly regarded as wrong and pretentious, just so other people like you pick up on the signal.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. And I totally understand that it's pretentious.
And Jeff, good for you. Good for you if it makes you feel good. I want you to feel good, Jeff, because I'm your friend.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't feel like that's honest.
No, but
there's got to be something like that for you, right? Nothing like that where you're a little pedantic about something because it means something to you, or you're just like, go with the flow, baby. You don't care.
I'm sure there is. I mean, you know that if I had my druthers, I say GIF and not GIF, and that pisses people off.
Right.
But I'll say it either way, and I won't argue about it.
Right.
But.
Well, I've stopped correcting people. That's for damn sure.
Yeah,
because that only leads in misery.
Good,
ends in misery. But I also I know I value it when I listen to NPR and I hear somebody pronounce the word the right way.
Of course,
I love it.
Yeah, and I think this study is kind of that for the idea of reading and the visual, the visual design of how we read. It's kind of like, well, if it's smoother, and smoothness is not something that can really be qualified or quantified as having a benefit, I don't know. Is it better to be like more aesthetically pleasing then? And to use less space up?
Yeah.
Not that we worry about physical column inches anymore.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I think what's more important about this is the sort of idea of I think in general written communication, there shouldn't be much argument or weight placed on one versus two spaces. I think it's more for like people who worry about the MLA or AP or whatever kind of mechanics of style, like the Chicago Manual of Style, whatever they use, they have to kind of decide, and everybody in the industry has to sort of follow that. Yeah. So I don't know, like if you're on a newspaper and like everybody decides to put 2 back, I guess that's fine. But I don't know, like, what is the conclusion here? What did people take away from it?
I mean, the people are still entrenched in their positions, right? So it gives you slight scientific basis to say, hey, 2 actually has the tiniest bit of benefit. But I don't know. I've been actually trying to stop the 2 in myself because I understand it's changed, and I don't want somebody to look at what I write and have that tacit communication be I'm stuck in the past. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to stick with 1 because I do think, like, when you look at a page as a whole, it looks more pleasing that way to have fewer of those big gaps. Yeah.
It just looks more like a flow.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do y'all think? Are you a 1-spacer or a 2-spacer?
It's all text messages now anyway. It doesn't even it's all just emoji.
Yeah. Do you even use capitalization or punctuation anymore?
Spaces at all?
What do you even do, man? I just use Animoji and Bitmoji. I don't even speak to people.
Yeah.
Let us know on Twitter. I'm at A Carboni.
I'm at Jeff Canada.
And you can hashtag that Concerned Manual of Style.
I think they should hashtag it just a series of spaces.
Don't you dare. Don't you fucking dare, any of you. Because that doesn't work.